All right. Let me commend you guys by being consistent with your studies, because what this is going to do is draw you even closer to the creator of the heavens and the earth. You're just going to get, you're going to get closer. All right. And then we have this word here is called psalm. Okay. And psalm, why is it the S sound? Why is it? Yep, it's a shin, but why is it S versus SH? Why is the S sound?
Is it that vowel point at the bottom?
Yes, no, it's that dot that's on the left hand side.
Okay.
Yeah, it's this thing right here. When it's on the left, it's an S sound. When it's right here on this side, it's a SH sound. Okay. So you might see, one to say, if the dot was over here, to be Sham, and we know Sham means name. Okay. So you would see these letters, and how would you know the difference? Because in the ancient Hebrew, they don't have any of these dots or none of this. So how would you know? You would know it by the context. You would know it by the structure of the sentence. You would know it based on what's being spoken. Okay. All the other things. So vocabulary is the key. Okay. And then you have the word for he returned. Okay. The he there is implied, but the word is sham or shav, shav. Why is it a V sound? Why is this a V sound? Because it doesn't have a dot in it. It's still a bet, but this one has a dot in it, which makes it a hard B sound. When it doesn't have that dot in it, it's a V sound. Okay, but still, it's still a bet, whether it sounds like a B or a V sound. Okay, and that goes into the tongue, or how there's spirals. There's different ways to pronounce vowels, and so that's a whole nother thing. Okay, we have to take a whole bunch of time to break that down, which we will eventually. Okay, and then you have right here Yalak, he went, and then you have Aish, which is fire. Okay, and then you have Midbar, and that's a desert, and that's where we spent our time, in the desert. And then we have Kol, which is one of the most important words that I know. And the reason why Kol is important is because it has to do with the voice and the sound. And when we're dealing with voice and sound, we're dealing about with Yahweh's sound and with Yahweh's voice. He said, you guys will not listen to my voice. And his voice is the Torah. So all of our words, as you see here, a lot of people think that the Jewish people make this up. They figure that this is their language, and it's not. Okay, what they've done is they've come in it. I mean, they've came into it, and they have decided, like, we're going to put some different vowel points on it. We're going to put some different pronunciation on it. We're going to make it our own. You can't be mad at them for it. Okay, but every word that they have ever used and that they are teaching has to do with, they would say, the biblical Hebrew. They get all these words from their source is going to be found in the Tanakh, which is the T for Torah, the N for the Navaim, which are the prophets, and the K for the Katavim, the writings. That's where they get every last one of these words, except for the ones that they want to alter. Okay, like Elohim, they turn it to Elohim, and they turn it from Yohe to, Hashem, those types of things. Okay. We're going to continue in our verb section. Okay. But now they're going to let you know something about verbs. Verbs actually can be weak or they can be strong. What makes a verb weak, okay, has to do with the letters that's involved. And they're going to tell us what that is in just a moment. But again, what we've learned so far in lesson number 5 is that there are 3 root letters to every verb. And we understand that when you put a Hebrew verb in its past, its present, and its future tenses, you always have to add letters to the beginning, the middle, or the end. The beginning of a root, when you put a letter there, it would tell you that this in particular word here is in the future. When you put a letter in right here in the middle, it is in the present tense. When you put a letter or letters on the end, it is in the past. Very simple. 1, 2, 3, past, present, and future. So depending on where the location of the letter is added, will let you know what is going on with that in particular verb. We see too that you have the same verb, shamar. It's right there. Shomer, same one. The shin, the mem, and the resh. Shem, the mem, and the resh. Shem, the mem, and the resh. It's nothing but a puzzle. So once you figure out what the main root is, because a root is a 3-letter word, right here, it's called a shoresh. Once you know what that is and you recognize it as a vocabulary word, soon as you put that letter on the end and you know what that letter means, you'll be able to translate it and understand what's being said. Shamarti, something in the past, meaning I said something, okay? Shomer, I'm saying something, okay? Am I guarding? No, I'm guarding, not saying. Shema is guarding or saying. So shamar is to guard. So I guarded or I'm guarding. And or I, the A right here, the aleph is eshmor. Eshmor is I will in the future. Okay. And notice how you get your tenses. And again, in the Hebrew language, it's always going to be past, present, and future. In the prophecies, you would find that Yah speaks always, sometimes in the past. Some things he says that's already in the past, because in his understanding, right, his mind, in his thought, in who he is, his existence, he can speak something and it already exists. So if he says, I'm going to rescue you, he's already rescued you. Somebody tell me why. Why does he say stuff and then it's like it's already done? Why?
Because once he said it, it's done.
Once he said it, he's done. And like we went about our lesson today, he's actually telling us this: I'm going to keep my word. So I can say something, right, in the past that's for the future. And it's already done because I know who I am and I know I'm going to keep my word. Okay. He doesn't allow us to do that. For to say that something's going to happen and doesn't happen, it's called a prognosticator. And it means that that's witchcraft. So, and that's why he says, if they spoke a word and it's not been in my name, then you don't have to listen to that prophet, because everything that Yahweh says will come to pass. He will do what he says he's going to do. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you and show you what letters are the letters that are in the Hebrew alphabet that would make a verb weak. Okay. That's all we're going to deal with, is what makes a verb weak. What makes it a verb weak, and what I mean by weak, let me explain what I mean by being weak. It means that it's not strong enough to stay where it's at. Okay. So if you have these 4 letters inside of any of your verbs, any of these verbs, okay, which will go one by one. The first one is a yod. Okay. The second one is what? Yes, it's the wa. Okay. And what's the third one?
The noon.
Thank you. The noon. Okay. And what's the last one?
The hey.
Okay. So when you put these letters together, it spells the word Jonah. It's one of the prophets. It's easy for us to remember. I say Jonah, but his real name is Yonah. And what was Jonah's name? What does his name mean?
It's a dove.
Thank you. And what does a dove do?
Act silly.
Act silly, but they also will what? Fly away. You understand? They're not a strong bird. They're very delicate. Okay. So because you're weak doesn't mean that you're not beautiful, right? It means that you can't handle certain things. Okay. So this is what we have. All right. So this is easy for us to remember. Just remember this in particular prophet by the name of Yonah. Here's a yod. Here's the noon. And where's my other one? Oh, here's the right here, this O right here. That's the wa, that's the noon, and then here's the hey. Okay, right here. So those 4 letters. And there's other letters that have certain meanings and things like that too, that we'll get to later. But the most important we're focused on today is that these are what they would call weak letters. Okay, that means they will leave. Okay, so the question would be, what can happen when the weak letters in a verb? And they tell us what it is. It tells us that, number one, sometimes they drop out, they just leave. I don't know why, but they just leave. Okay. The second is that sometimes they're replaced by other letters. So they might leave, and there's sometimes it might be a replacement. But it says in this in particular lesson today, in category number 1, that's all we're going to talk about. They're going to look at category number 2 later. We're not going to talk about replacement today. All you're going to talk about today is dropping out. And what happens and why does it happen? Okay. Because they want to know. Like, well, what's going on? Don't let this stuff scare you. All these different, words and bold letters and arrows and, stuff that's highlighted. It says sometimes weak letters drop out, right? So the rule, because it's about rules, when you add a letter onto the beginning, the middle, or the end of a verb, a weak letter may drop out. So here's the examples. Our first example is I gave. Okay, so based on me saying gave something, I know this past tense. When you speak, you got to be listening to what you're saying. That's what I like about the Hebrew language. We can't just be quick and just, going. You got to take your time and you got to think about what's been said. Okay, so I gave is different than I will give, or I'm giving. Okay, so I'm going to say a couple of different things right quick. If I said gave, that's in the what tense do you think?
Past tense.
Past tense. So you got to be listening. I will give.
Future.
I'm giving.
Present.
Okay, now I'm going to say it again, but I want you to tell me where the letter is. I gave.
And
Yes, it's at the end because it's in the past. Remember, something at the end is in the past. Okay, so associate in with past. Now we're going to go, I'm giving.
Middle.
Why? Because I'm in the middle of doing it. If I say I will, right? I'm at the beginning of it. You see? So associate those ideas and thoughts and words to what you hear. Okay. And then when you're hearing it, you'll know, oh, that's in the middle, that's in the past, or that's in the end, in the beginning. So it's to put your piece in the puzzle where it belongs. Okay. So then you have our one of our words, which is called Nathan. And Nathan by itself means he gave. Okay, that's what it means. So the moment you write, it's a verb. That's an action. So I gave should be Nathan. There you go, Nathan. The 3 letters, the in, the noon, the tav, and the noon right here. That's the root. And then you have the T on the end. So that's what it's supposed to be because it's in the past, right? So you got Nathan, and then you got T. You put it together, you got Nathan T. But something has to happen, okay? So, but since the noon is weak because it's part of our word Yonah, the noon right here, right? That in particular letter is weak because it's associated with our dove that we have. It flies away, okay? So now that it flies away, you would have, right, the last letter, then you would have Nathati, okay? Not Nathanti, Nathati. So usually when we look at our words like Nathati, we go, I don't know what that is, because your brain is saying, I remember 3-letter roots. I remember the root is Nathan right here. Where's it at? I remember this. My brain saw this. So what we have to do is be able to know what verbs or what words have weak letters in them. And we know on Nathan, the last letter is a noon. It's weak. Okay. I think a question one way asked too is like, okay, well, this is a final noon. And then you have another noon right here in the front, right? So which one of those fall off? The answer to that question would be, where are you attaching a letter? Are you attaching to the front? Or are you attaching to the end? If you're attaching it to the front, would this first letter fall off?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So let me explain it again. This is a noon. This is a noon. They're both weak. Okay. All noons, no matter what word it's in, is if it's on the front or the end, it's weak. Okay. Or if it's in the middle, it's weak. Any of this, a yod is weak. Okay. A wa is weak. A noon is weak. And a hey is weak. They will be weak forever. Okay. So if I said I need to add a letter to the front of this, and there's a noon right here, I got to scratch this out. And it'll fly away. And it'll be etain versus, Natan. Okay. If I say, well, I'm not going to put it on the front of it, I'm going to put it on the end of it. The T right here. I'm going to put this right here. Right? This will fall off or fly away. It'll be nathati. Okay. That's what it would be. Nathati. That's how it works. So every time you look at it, you'd be like, okay, well, if it's past, present, and future, that would determine which one is leaving. Okay. So if it's in the future, the letter in the front, that one right there, this letter falls off. If not, we're not doing a future letter. We're doing a past letter right here on the end. Like that, then this is going to fall off. Okay. If there's a letter right here that's in the future and I had to put a wa in there, they're going to remove that letter and put that and remove it. If the wa was there, they will remove it. Okay. So there's just this idea of replacing the pieces of the puzzle and knowing which ones are going to fly away. Okay. But here it says, please note that the Nathan is the only verb, okay, whose final noon falls off. It's the only verb whose final noon falls off. That's just something that they want you to know, that because this verb is always this verb is used more than a lot of verbs. To give, to place, to set, all that. They're letting you know. Number 2, I will. Where did they put the letter at?
In the beginning.
Put it at the beginning, because it's something I plan on doing in the future. Good job. And so, as I indicated earlier, they're going to drop this off. And then you go put this letter on the front of it, and then it's going to become what? Etain. I will give. Okay. You see how that happens? You see how it was Nathan. It was Nathan, right? But then he said, well, I'm going to add a letter to the front of it. So they scratched this out and they put the aleph right there, and it's etain. I will give. Okay. That's in the future. So we're learning today about what letters are going to fly off. So what's the name of the prophet what's the name?
Yona.
Yonah. The first letter is a yod, right?
Mhm.
Next one is a wa. The next one is a noon. And then the hey. Okay. Those 4 letters, 1, 2, 3, 4. Because remember, you only put this I here. In English, but it's not there in Hebrew. Okay. Because in our first lesson, is there a letter A? No.
No.
A doesn't exist. Is the aleph in A? No. It's not. Okay. Actually, the aleph is what?
Silent.
Thank you. Okay, it's silent. But you said, well, it's in the front and it has these 3 dots underneath it. What's that about? That's in the vowel points, which is a whole nother lesson. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about these vowel points. Don't worry about that right now. You know how to say the word at this point. That's as far as you're going. You're going to build upon what you're doing. This is all structured. Okay. But one of the problems I have is that I'm kind of wild. So, I like to go all over the place. And the creator's saying, no, it's structured. Follow the structure. Don't go outside of it. You know how he says in the Torah to go, you don't go to the left and don't go to the right?
Mhm.
Take that principle and you add that to everything that you do. In terms of instructions, when you're baking some cornbread, like I'm going to do later on in the night, I'm going to stay within the guidelines of the instructions. There's a Torah to cornbread, you see? So if I go ahead and start adding stuff and taking away from stuff, would it be what it's supposed to be? No. So we have to adopt that mindset and adapt those ways, okay? The next one is 3, which talks about you will go out. Now we're using a whole nother root, okay? So our root is what? Our root right here is yatsa. Okay, and that means to go out, okay? What they're going to do now is talking about you will. And if it's something that has to be a will, I will do something or you will do something, okay? I will, you will, he will, she will, we will, they will, okay? All these different pronouns, okay? It's all depending on what letters you're using. The I is an aleph, the U is a tav, okay? He is a yod, the she is a yod, but with a different I on the ending. The we is a noon, okay? And the they would have a yod combination with a wa on the end, and then here's the verb right here. We'll get into that a little bit later as well. My point is the future is about I will, you will, he will, she will, they will, we will. So it's always going to go in front. Okay. So you take yatsa, you're not going to add the tav to it like this, and it'll be taitsa or thitsa. Okay. Because the verb has a weak letter in it, one of our words out of the yona, which is this yod right here, it's weak. It flies or drops off and it gets out of the way. So once it flies away like a dove, then all you have is the tav, the zadi, and the aleph, which is tetza. That means you will go out. Okay. And that is a future tense. Okay. And it says, please note that tetza can also be she will go out. Okay. And then it has a note on page 36, which will explain to us why that is the case. So you're going to see some things, some adjustments on things, and you just have to go with the flow. And then as you continue to stay in his language, a lot of your questions will be answered. Okay. The fourth little thing here is we will go. It says you will notice that the words to learn for this lesson, yalak, that's one of our vocabulary words, number 74. It said this is very interesting since we know that from the lesson number 1, halak, word number 9, he went. So we got he went from halak, and we have he went from number 74. So when we're speaking, so it says the rabbis tell us, okay, that when we're speaking in the past tense, move this out the way. When we're speaking in the past tense about something, the root of the verb to go, okay, halak, meaning I went, that's in the past tense, meaning halakti. But when we're speaking about a future tense, the root is yalak, okay? So they don't show it here, but I have to show it. This word, right, this first letter right here is a yod. And what does a yod mean symbolically?
Hand.
The hand. We went over that today. Okay. The hand is associated with the term he. Okay. That's what it means. It means he. Okay. And lak, as you know, means went. So Yalak. Halakti. I went. Okay. On the end, he went. Yalak. And I think they're trying to let us know that it says, but when we're speaking in the future tense, the word is yalak. Why? They asked the question, why this is so. We're not going to discuss right now. We just want to point out the root of the verb, okay? To go in the future tense is yalak. With this in mind, we can now come back to where we started and how do we say we will go? Let's see. And so now they're going to tell us that. So that's one of the things that kind of, I don't know. I know they have a reason or a rhyme, a reason for what they do. And when I went through this book, I kind of get it. I think if they give us something too fast, they can't explain something else. So when he has these little notes about we're not going to discuss it right now, don't let it upset you like it did me. Just understand that, you know, right now is just not the time for it. They have a reason. I don't know. So when it talks about yalak here on the bottom, meaning he went, it's the root of the verb. That's the root because it's how many letters?
3.
3. That's the root of a verb. Okay. It's in the future tense. We will go out should be right here is the noon, right? That's one of the future tense letters that can be added. Like I told you, the aleph is I, the tav is you, the yod is he, and the noon is we. Okay. So the noon will be added onto the front of this 3-letter root. And it would say, you know, nilak, but they're saying because it has what in it? What's the weak letter that has to fly away?
Yod.
The yod, because it's weak. Okay, so it flies away or it drops out. They say drop out. I like to say fly because it reminds you of Yonah, a dove. Okay, and it makes sense. So it would be, if you say we, it'd be we will go. The first letter there is a noon, and that represents we will. That's what this noon represents. We will. You guys see that? And then here is the actual verb right here. The lock, and it means to go or went. Okay, to go. We will go. If it's in past tense, went. But if it was in the past, there wouldn't be a letter on the front. Where would the letter be?
And
It'd be on the end. And if it was we on the end, it would be not just a regular noon. It'd be a noon and a wa, mean new, in you, like this. Okay. So just a little bit. I know it's not here, but if I say we went, what would I say? I would say lock what? Locknu.
new.
Locknu. Okay. Here is ne lake. If I say we went in the past, it would be Locknu. Just a little note to kind of let you know. Just move those letters around. So remember, what are we talking about? What kind of verbs are we talking about? Weak or strong?
Weak.
Week.
Weak. They also have strong verbs. Well, we're not going to get into that right now. All right. Here we are. Here's example number 5. I came. This is part of our vocabulary words, right? So bo, right here, bo, that's all it is, means to come. So we're looking like, well, to go, to went, to come, to walk, to went, you know, there's certain words that you have to be looking for, okay? And if you notice, what is the weak verb in, or weak letter inside of this verb? It's the wa. The wa is going to fly away or it's going to drop out, okay? Right? It means I came should be, if you put I on the end, which is the tav, and the yod right here, T, that means I. It's equivalent to I in the past tense. You would add it to it. But if you added it to it, then it would look like this. It would be the bet, the wa, the aleph, and the tav, and the yod. But because it has a weak vowel in it, you're going to take this off, and it's going to be pati. Okay, so it went from a to this. They drop the weak wa. It flies away. Okay. Because in our word, Yona, it would be this vowel right here, Yona. Okay. So what do we have? It says Mbathi is an example. It's our first example we've seen of a letter dropping out of the middle. Okay. Of how many letters of a root?
3.
Okay. In the list of vocabulary to learn for this lesson, we've included the most commonly occurring verbs whose middle letter can drop out. So in our vocabulary words, they showed us, let me just finish what they're saying. These are the vocabulary words that this letter drops out: bo, muth, and kum. Okay, and shuv, and sim. Okay, so in each one of these, as in your vocabulary word, they're going to have the brackets around it, and it's going to show you, like, for example, kum over here is going to be this one right here, and then inside of this bracket, they're only going to show you this, like this, quam. One's going to go from kum, one's going to be calm. One's going to be muth, and the other one's going to be moth, because they're going to get rid of the wa right here. They're going to get it out. Okay. So focus on your study this week. When you look at it, say which one of these letters are, practice it. And just write it down on paper and you'll be fine. So it said in the past tense, the weak wa and the weak yod always drop out. Always in the past tense. And this is one of their rules. In the past tense, if something's in the past, that weak wa and that weak yod always drops out. This therefore explains why you went to ba and what it used to be. It used to be bo. That's why it went from muth to moth. This was why it went from kum to quam. This is why it went from over here of the shuv, which is to return, that it went to shav. And this is why I went from, or covered it up. I got to do a better job with this marker. It's kind of thick. It went from sim to sam. You understand? And the reason why they're telling us the reason why this wa is dropping out and this yod is dropping out is because it's in the past tense. What makes it a past tense? Why all of a sudden are these roots in there? Are the roots already in their past tense? You only use these words to go into the past tense. When you talk about death, you're talking about something that's past. It's going to happen, right? That's the end is death, meaning that's the end. When you place something somewhere, that's the end of that. It ain't going nowhere else. When you were to come somewhere, once you arrive, there's nowhere else to go. You see, when you return, you're coming back from somewhere, and once you return, you're there. That's why they're looking at it as being in the past tense. Does that make sense? So the word that they're using, right? They decided, well, these have these, because you will see it as bo, and you would also see it as ba, but they're letting you know off the top. Once you take those, it's always going to drop out, because these two weak letters right here are associated with these words that have to do with something that has a final end. Okay. It's going to always be in the past. They're past tense. Okay. They're past tense. And you'll see that when you start reading, you'll be like, oh, he came. That's past. He died. Past. That's past. All these verbs up here is to die, to come, right? To return, to place. Now all of a sudden they turn from to be. Why? Because it's in the past. And the more you read, the more you'll understand this. But remember, that's why I think I highlighted here. In the past tense, this letter and this letter will always drop out of these words here. And you're going to see these words all over the place. How often do we talk about death? In my class. We talk about it a lot. Muth yumath. When Yah says that you shall surely die, he said, Muth yumath. You will die. Bo, come. Kum, rise. Shuv. How often do we talk about returning? A lot. Shuv. So returning back. And sim means to place. All right. So even though it appears that these verbs have only 2 root letters, which is a problem because they already said all verbs have 3 root letters, they really have 3 root letters. They have 3, okay? Just the middle wa or the yod have dropped out here in the past tense because they're weak, okay? So note that these letters drop out even if they have no letter, because it's been added to the root simply by saying he in the past tenses causes the wa or the yo to drop out. Just a rule that you got to remember when you see it. So there's some things that you're going to have to remember, okay? And trust me, often you're not going to get everything at one time, okay? So don't get discouraged like, I can't remember, I can't. No, it's not going to be like that. What it's going to be is once we, oh, what happened here? Once we start studying it, right, and going over it over and over and over again, what's going on? Once we start, oh man, it's messed up. Is that it right there? Yeah, once we start studying it, we'll get used to it, okay? So then it gives us some information here about translating this verb where weak letters have dropped out. It said we learned on page 37 a method for translating verbs, break the verb into 2 parts. And we already been over this, meaning there's 3 letters, right? Then you to break it down is you just look at what letter was added to the front, what letter was added to the middle, and what letter was added to the end. And so what it's saying right here is the exact same method applies here with a slight variation. Since these are weak letters and they can fall out of the verbs, we can find cases where there are only 2 letters, meaning like you have to do like a diagnostic on the verb, okay? So when you look at this 2-letter verb up here, glad I didn't move on. When you look at these 2 letters right here, you say, well, that's not a 3-letter, that's a 2-letter. So obviously this is not a verb. It's still a verb. It's still perfect. There's telling us the only reason why, listen, the only reason why they're 2 letters and not 3 is because they had what kind of letters in them?
Weak.
They got weak letters. And because they're weak, they fly off. They leave these. So it doesn't mean that they've never, if you look in the text, it doesn't mean that they've never existed. It means that they have flown away. They fly, it's the same. Moth is the same as move. And now you understand why it's 2 letters. You understand why it's no longer kum, why it's quam. You know why now. Tell me why. Why is it quam versus kum? What happened?
The weak letter flies away.
It flies away. You guys like my bird?
Yes.
It flies.
Encore.
Okay. So I know that's not part of their instruction here, but I thought it'd be an easy way to remember Jonah. You know, he's flying. Bye-bye. Okay. So that's what happened. That's why it's 2 letters. So you don't get all panicking like, well, what is it? And once you get used to the vocabulary, you'd be like, oh, I know what that is. Oh, I know why it's not there, because it's weak and it can't be there. Okay, it flies away. Now, it says, I didn't read that last part. Let's just talk about these examples. So again, we have the example in Athati, okay? And now it's going to tell us how to break it down. So number 1, the first rule to breaking something down is you look for the root letters. That's rule number 1. That's how you do it. So in our little thing right here, we go, okay, well, what's the root? What's the root of this? Well, if we know our vocabulary and we've been getting familiar with the sound, not just looking, don't just, hey, listen, Don't just look at it and go, oh, I know what that says. Don't do that. When you look at it, you go, you got to sound it out. Go, nathati, nathati. Close your eyes, nathati. And once someone would say it later on, you'd be like, nathati is, nathan is to give and T is I. Oh, I gave. You got to hear it. You got to hear the sound. That's why you have to pronounce it. That's why you got to learn how to read, because you can read it and you'll hear the sound. It'll be nathati. Well, natha, and then you'll know, oh, Nathan. So they put the T on. I know the T was added. So what was the other letter? Oh, wait a minute. The weak letters are Yonah. So look at the dove and find out, well, which letter is it? Was it the Yod that's parted? So would it be Nathai? No. I've never heard of that word before. I never heard that verb. Then you look at the next one. Natho? No, never heard of that either. Go to the next letter. What's the noon? Nathan. Yes, it's Nathan. And you can stop right there. And then that's how you do it. You look and figure out what the root is. So it becomes a little fun and also mysterious. Okay. It's like a little a scavenger hunt. The second thing that you're going to do is you're going to look for the added letters. And that's the key. This right here tells me automatically that's in the past. And it tells me that it's I, because I've studied it and I remembered it, not because I'm a genius. That's all it is. Okay. So it would be, in this case, easier to identify the added letter at the end of the verb, right? So I know the grammar, I know the letter, I know what it is. I know it's the past, the present, and future. Do you see how they're building your framework, the structure? So when you look at things, you're going to be looking at it differently. You're not going to be looking at the words like, I just need to say this word. I just need to remember the vocabulary. The only reason why you need to remember the vocabulary is so you can get familiar with the sound. And so when you look at it, you'll know, oh, that's weak and that's strong. Okay. And that if it's weak, it flies off or it drops away. So when I put something on it, I know what's happening. I understand what's going on. Okay. And so you have here that once you start doing a diagnostic on it, and you break it down, you'd be like, okay, well, that's an in, a in and a noon and a tav. Let me speak in Hebrew. And then this is a tav and a yod. That's the T. Okay. This right here is a root, the root, but I know that they added this letter right here. But I also know that the roots come in 3 letters. So what's the missing letter? So then you know the vocabulary. Oh, the most obvious place for it to drop off is right next to where they added the letter. Oh, so they added the top to the end. So that's where the letter the letter is missing. And if out of the 4 letters that it is, it either could be a yod, it could be a wa, it could be a noon. I'm putting it in English. Or it could be the hey, which is the H, right? It could be that. So which one is it? Oh, it's this one. Ah, okay. I know what it is. And then once you accept this into your psyche and you accept it to be the truth, you're not going to try to change it. You're never going to say that some other letters are weak. You're always going to say that these are the ones. Okay. And so all you would do then is you would say, oh, I need to add that letter. And that would be the final noon. That's Nathan. Okay. And if Nathan in English would be Na and then Than. And then you have your word Nathan right there. And his name means exactly that. Okay. It means to give. That's what it means. Okay. So we also know it must be one of these 4 weak letters, as we talked about. It could be a yod, a noon, a wa, a noon, and a hey. It's only 4 of them. So you're going to memorize that, but it's easy because you're talking about the dove. Ooh, ooh, ooh. You know, they do their little cry or their little communication. Okay. So listen to this. You see how I highlighted this? If you know our vocabulary, well, it's clear that the Nathan is the final noon is dropping out, because you know in your Hebrew that the final is going to look different than this. Here's the noon, but here's the final. And as you know, certain letters have finals. Okay. The mem has a final. Okay. The Kaf has a final. Okay. The Zadi has a final. The Noon has a final. Okay. So there's all these finals. All right. Once you recognize them, you'll be fine. All right. So then it says, but even if you don't recognize it immediately, you say you just can't figure it out, you could try the method of trial and error, trying each letter of the what? Of the weak letter. Like I said, you can add, like he's going to give us an example here, which is pretty nice, that he said you can add the letters to the end of that. So you'll add a yod to the end. Does that make sense? No. Does this make sense? No. This one, yeah, that's Nathan. That's vocabulary. Natha? No, that's not it. Okay. So you go through trial and error. It's like putting your pieces of your puzzle together. If you still don't recognize, you go to the alphabetic index at the book on page 176, and you will see that Nathan is listed. So it's just telling you, it's educating us. So the root must be Nathan, and the root of the verb is to give. And so the added letters identify the T as the end, so we know that it's in the past tense, and that's how simple this is. And the T in the past tense is identified as I. So all you got to learn your pieces. My job is to teach you how to do it easily without that much confusion, okay? Because you're going to go over it, just try to get you comfortable with it. So after we do our lessons, just go over it like, 5 minutes during the week. Just read it over and be like, oh, I remember that. And you might take it to your brain and remember it. And also, too, you might forget it. You might forget it. And that's okay. I want to let you know that. It's okay. Let's use the same verb right quick. And I'm going to speed it up a little bit. Nathan. All I did was add an aleph to it. So it's etain. And it means I will give. Okay. But if I'm going to break it down, you just chop it down. You look at that, you'd be like, okay, I'm not used to that word. So what do I got to do? Is there any weak letters in here? I don't see any weak letters. But if you wanted to find it and you would know what's going on, you'd be like, what weak letter is at the front of it? And then you have to go through your analysis like you did on the previous page, where you take each one of those letters and add it to the front of that word. And that's how you would end up finding what that is. The next one is ru. Is it ru? Ra'u. It's ra'u. Okay. Ra'u. And this in particular verb here means, I think, to see, if I'm not mistaken. Is it see? Or is it, what is it? Yeah, it is. It is to see. Okay. So this one is to see. And they're showing you, they're giving you an example how you break everything down. Okay. Ra'u. And then it says the root of the word is 3 letters, which is this. So that obviously something had to be added to it. And we know the u on the end of any word tells us in the past, but we also know that it means they. And if they saw something, they saw it in the past. They saw it. Okay. Ra'u. And then it tells you where to go for your past tense table on page number 36. And it tells you that this u right here is that. Okay. If I did shamar is to guard. Okay. If I wanted to say they guarded or they guarded, I would put this wa right here on the end. And it'll be shamaru. See? That's what it would be. If I wanted to say that somebody says something, I know amar is to say, right? I would put the wa on the end is amaru, meaning that they said, because it's in the past. So the game that you and I are playing, because this is what it is, it's a game. It's a game and it's a puzzle. Okay. That's what it is. That's what's making it interesting. It's not just a puzzle you don't get to speak, it's a game. And the pieces of the game can either stay or leave. And so, each of the pieces, you can have a piece that's an aleph, you can have a piece that's a yod, you can have a piece that's a hey, you can have a piece that's a tav in the beginning, you can have a piece that's a tav on the end, you can have a noon on the front, you can have another piece of noon on the back. Okay. So all different pieces of your puzzle. And you got it. And the puzzle, what this puzzle is when you remove each piece, you can put different pieces on the same root, okay, and get different results. And that's why a language that consists of probably 6,000 roots can have literally 3 times the amount of words just by adding things to the front, adding something to the back, or putting something in the middle. You see, because 3 times, 1, 2, 3. So this 6,000 roots of our language can end up turning into 18,000 words. And if you didn't know this, the Hebrew language is the most concrete and concise because they don't waste a whole bunch of time with a whole bunch of letters. They tell you exactly what it is, okay? So if you learn the roots to something, if you know the pieces to your puzzle, you can create 3 times as much or many words that you would normally. That's why your volume up here will be expanded. So if you have 100 vocabulary words, automatically you got over 300 different other words that you can create. If you know the pieces, if you know how to put those pieces there, that's why I call it a puzzle, and that's why I call it a game, because that's exactly what it is. Okay. And in this game, in this puzzle, like I told you earlier, you can sing your way into this. You could put on your favorite music. You don't have to be a rapper. You know what I'm saying? You could put on some classical music. You can sing it. You see, you can do whatever you want to do. I don't care how you get it. You get it whatever way you know how to get it. Okay. You got to bump your head till you bump your head. Okay. That's what it is. So here again, they're breaking it down. Diagnostic. What does it consist of? Yeah, size to go out. And then the noon on the front means we. And then because it's on the front, it's we will. You see? That's what it is. And it's never going to change. But you will see words, and this is the thing, I think the question I had when I first saw it was like, okay, but dang, how would I know? You know, I'm like, man, if it has a noon on the front and it has a top and it has another noon again, how do I know, like, if this noon right here is we, or is it just part of the verb? The first thing you got to think about is, if it's, you got to find the root. If I know my vocabulary and I'm familiar with it, I'll be like, oh no, that's part of the root. Okay. But if it's something added to it and the letter's missing, I know Nathan's supposed to be there, but it's not there. There's yithane, then I know, oh, the noon was there. Because here's another, they added another, the yit, even though it's weak, they added it to the front of it to mean he. You see? So anytime they add letters to the front of something, I know it's future tense. Something will happen because it's at the beginning. If I know it's in the middle, something is going on. I'm in the middle of something. If it's something at the end, it's at the end of something. It already happened. It's in the past. Okay. So that's how you break all this down. And you spend time every day this week and you go over your vocabulary words and you sing them. Okay. You hear me? You sing them. I don't care if you got to sing it in a what do they call it? In your church voice. I don't care. You had to talk. Ah, yeah, Quam, Nathan Lanu, yeah. I don't care how you got to do it. That's my family. They'd be like, man, what is wrong with him? What is wrong with him? Because I practice, you know, I have, okay, so I do the, we're closed up. I do the, what do they call it? Psalms 23. It's my favorite. Okay, it's one of my favorites. And so what I did is I memorized it. I memorized the Psalm, but I didn't memorize it like without music. So what I do is I can rap it, I can sing it, I can harmonize it, I can do whatever I need to do. I'm a terrible singer, but it doesn't matter. I don't care. I memorized the 23rd Psalm. It's only 6 verses. It's only 6 verses. And every time a song comes on, I don't care what the beat is, I can make the words match whatever beat's saying, because that's how I learned. That's how you learn. You got to play music. When I was, growing up, I studied to classical music. You can study to classical music. You can study to the harp. I don't care what it is. Put some music to what you're learning. Okay. And that's how it works because we're a musical people. And there's things, that's how we learn. When Yah said to Moshe that I need you to teach the children of Israel this, so it'll be as a witness against them. Guess what he taught them? He taught them a song. Boy, them are some lyrics in that song. When Dawid wrote his songs, okay, they call them songs, but they're songs and poems. He wrote it to music. We're a musical people. That's what I need you to understand. You and I are not supposed to read this without no rhythm. We're not supposed to go, there is no word or letter for A in the Hebrew language. That's not who we are. We're the people. Look, this is for the soul. Put some music to it.
Kind of brings you to slavery, how they sang everything and communicated.
There you go. You read? Down by the river. Da, da, you know what I mean? And everybody was singing. Okay. I might have you guys start singing. and we're gonna get into character. And I'm gonna sing, and I have this guy, this character that I've developed. His name is Mr. Williams. He's one of these preachers that I grew up with. And he was really a nice guy. But every time he talked like this. I need you to understand what I'm about to tell you. This is the way that it is. This is how this guy talked. Okay. So when I make jokes and I practice, I always talk in that voice when I'm talking about Christianity, because that's where I learned it from. Okay. So when I'm talking to you right now, I want you to understand lesson number 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 through 5, we find out that there is no word or letter for A in Hebrew. Can I get an amen? It's just that simple. A letter hey at the beginning of a noun means the. These are all its rules. So go over the rules every time you do a lesson. Go over what you've learned so you can reinforce it. That's what I like about this book. They put these things here to kind of remind you of like, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. So you're always going to get something to remind you, okay, of that. And again, this was on lesson number 5 on these past and future endings. And he gave us any present tense. So go over that as well. They want you to go over that. That's why I keep saying, please learn this table well. Okay. So that's what you learned in lesson number 5. All right. And then finally, what we have here in our lesson number, if this thing will behave. Lesson number 6, they're going to give you some rules down here and a summary. It says the 4 letters, the yod, the nun, and the hey, are called weak letters, right? Because they can drop out of the root verb. And if you'd like to replace it with Yonah, you can. You can replace it with flying away, you can. It's easy to remember. Just remember that prophet. Because what did he try to do? He tried to what?
Run away.
He tried to fly away. You understand? Then what I have in here is a lesson exercise for you. And what they want us to do is they want us to translate these following words into English. Okay. So please, tell me also the root. So what they want you to do is when you go through this lesson, and let me tell you something, it's going to take you some time. It's going to take you some time. You might have to go back and look in lesson number 2. So you can find out, well, what is that? You see what I'm saying? Okay. So when you investigate, you look at this, the first thing you go, wait a minute, that's a hey, a yod, and the ooh. Oh my goodness. What is this? What is it? What is it? So you have to break it down. You see, you have to break it down. We know the ooh on the end is they. We know that. And if it's on the end, we know it's in the past. That's the kind of work you got to do. Okay. So it's going to take time. Okay. It's going to take time. You're not going to be blasting through this. Actually, you know what's going to happen if you want to be honest, when you study this, does your head start hurting? Because mine did. I started writing this stuff down. I was like, wait a minute, this is too much. I can't do this. And I would say, I'm not Jewish, because that was the beginning of my learning. So I found out that I am Hebrew. I'm an Israelite, and this is part of my culture. Okay. And these are the words of the living Elohim. So he created these words for us. Okay. And they're just written in a different script. Okay. So they want you to go through and they want you to look for the root. And the root consists of 3 letters. See, like, how am I going to find the root in the 3 letters when 2 of them are missing? You know what I'm saying? Then you go, oh, this is ba. Okay, I see that. That's fresh in my mind. Okay. So all the words that they're going to give you guys in here, some of them you ain't going to remember because they're not, some of the words in here are not going to be part of the vocabulary of this lesson number 6. This right here is a sa. I can see it right here. So ya'asu means they did or they made. Okay. And so you find the root. Here's a sa right here. Here's a sa right here. See? So you got to go through all this. Okay. And it's going to be fun. You got all week. Don't get intimidated. What else do I want to tell you? Okay. So once they get you used to doing this, right? And you understand past, present, and future, because that's what you're after. You're after finding the root, and then you're going to translate it. You're going to say what it is. Translation means I want you to be honest. Who are you talking about? Okay. These are verbs. This is every one of these are all verbs. They're all verbs. Okay. And we know, right, that there are how many letters that are weak in verbs? 4. And they're the yod, the wa,
the noon, and the hay.
the nun, and the hay. That is Yonah. Okay. So when you're putting your pieces together, always remember that these 4 letters right here are available for you to try to put it in there to match it up and find out what the word is. And guess what's also going to happen? After you do your lessons, and don't you cheat. After you do your lessons, what's going to happen is it's going to be concreted into your brain because it's going to make your brain hurt to find out the answer. Anything that you got to work for and is worthy of remembering takes time. Okay. And then in number 7, they said that they want you to translate these following sentences into English. Okay. And who wants to do that right now? All right. So here it is. And I'm going to teach you guys one day what these dots and stuff mean. Not right now. Okay. I'm going to let you know what those mean. Too many dots, right? You got 2 dots right here. You got 2 dots here. You got a dot here. I don't want to get into that. Because you'd be like, I don't remember where that dot goes. Okay. Amar. What does Amar mean?
Say.
And who did it? It's 3 letters. So it's a what?
He said.
He said, there you go. So if it's the he, now think about what I'm saying. Amar. When I say Amar, that means he said. So when I'm number 1, I know who the person is. It's a 3rd person masculine singular. The he is, it didn't say I said, it didn't say you said, it didn't say she said, it didn't say we said, it said he said. So if I know it's he, I know that we're talking to the 3rd person masculine singular. So now if I'm talking about he, I know that, that's the pronoun, but now I got to find out what the proper noun is, which is what? The name of the individual who did say. So if you look at this right here, just off the 3 letters you got right there of not a verb, a name, a noun, the first letter is a mem. So it's going to go, and then you got the next one. Shh. So what do you got? Shh.
Moshe.
He said Moshe. That's right. Okay. And then he puts his shepherd's staff on somebody. You remember, we're agricultural. So the staff is in whose hand? It's in Moshe's hand. And then we know the call means what?
All.
All. So the staff means two or four, because that's what you use the staff to lead someone to somewhere or for someone. To all. So he said Moshe to all, and then we have here a word that used to be. What does it used to be? Because it's in a semicolon form. What does it used to be? If it's by name right now, what does it used to be? It used to be by nim. And by nim means sons, because Bain is son. And then you eem right here is plural, so that's sons. And because I am having two nouns next to each other, this is a noun and this is a noun, right? I'm going to change this one from banim to bane. So it's the sons and the sons of. Remember, that's what the semikuf is, of what? What's the name of your family?
Israel.
Israel. So he said, Moshe, to all the sons of Israel. So you see how you can say the and you don't have a hey in front of it? You see how I can say the? Because it's the sons. Remember the of, the blank of, and then it lets you know. That's what a semikuf is. Okay. So the sons of Israel. It doesn't have a hey in front of it. So sometimes you can have the without having the hey present. And we'll get more into that. But so far, so good. He said Moshe to all the sons of Israel. Okay. But remember the staff here, and then all means all, but it also means something else. It has a kaf and a lamed. He says the palm of the hand with the staff. You and I are not Ashkenazi. You're my people, and I got to tell you what it's saying. Okay. The all here, the call is, I'm going to put the staff to you, and to put the staff to you with the palm in my hand means that I'm going to do something with it. I'm going to tame you. That's what I'm doing. So when Yah is speaking, Moshe is speaking to the children of Israel, to the sons of Israel, he's really taming them. Do you see that? You got to see the agriculture in here. That's taming. And he's taming all the sons of Israel. Okay. Do you know he calls the animals that we bring to him the son of a bull, the bene of a bull, or the bane of an ox? Yah speaks in languages to tell us that he took Israel out from Mizraim and he led them through a desert like a shepherd leading his flock. So if we put our agricultural terms and our mind behind what he said, then you and I would understand what he is doing. It's not that he's saying something, he's doing something. Oh, but you better hear me. He's not just trying to say nothing to us. The words that Yahweh has given to us is to tame us. And he's using this shepherd Moshe to tame us. This is the reason why the Christ in the New Testament is a horrible shepherd. He didn't say anything that was going to be useful. Except for, I know you heard it's been said, but I say unto you. You see, so he's the new shepherd who's leading you in a different direction. And in his direction are miracles, casting out demons, raising the dead, everything we ain't never heard about and no one's ever mentioned. Y'all didn't get into a practice to this. The only one who was doing miracles was Yahweh through the prophets for the purpose of delivering Israel. Period. Have any of you guys eaten? Any of you guys were part of the 5,000 and 4,000 ate the bread that Christ had divided among the disciples? Did you eat any out of those baskets?
No.
Did you? No. So how were you benefited? You want to believe that somebody else did this for somebody else. But if any of us been ever seen anybody get healed from any eczema? Anybody else get healed from eczema or skin irritation or psoriasis? Have you seen anybody that somebody laid their hands on the psoriasis left?
No.
No. Anybody got a cure for cancer? I just want to know. No. That's all magic. and then Midbar is the desert of Sinai. Okay. So he spoke to them. He said to all the sons of Israel in the desert of Sinai. And what did he say to them? Our vocabulary word here is makar, means tomorrow, and it says yitain. What was the root of this word before it was yitain?
Nathan.
Yeah, Nathan. So Nathan means to give. The yod here is the he. And because the yod is in the front, he will give. Because the letter is in the front, he will give. And then it has here high, which is really Yahweh, because they don't use his name, because they're not his people. Eth, and the eth is an arrow. What is he going to give you tomorrow? See the word? First letter, a T. Next one, a O. Next one, a R. Next one, a TH. We knew that's, well, that seems like Torah. It is. And then the O. What happened is that in the context of how it's in a sentence structure, they ended up changing this right here, this Tav, from a hey. It used to be a hey. And they put it there, Toratho. The O on the end is his, as you notice in your list that you have, the noun endings. Remember the noun endings? One of the noun endings is the wa on the end, and it means his. Okay. So what he said is that he said Moshe to all the sons of Israel in the wilderness of Sinai, tomorrow he will give Yahweh eth, an arrow, his Torah. 2, that's the 2 or 4. The amo, that you know in your vocabulary or your other lessons. I was writing in English. Is people. Okay, and amo is his people, because the O on the end is his. Okay, and his people are Yisrael. Okay. Yisrael. On, which we study today, Har is what? The mountain. And what mountain was what? Sinai. Okay. Har Sinai. There you go. That's how you do it. And when you learn the pieces to the puzzle and you learn your different nouns and those sorts of things, then you would understand. But then you can see that I could take their names and I can break their names down. I can break Lakal down. I know what that means. I can break Yisrael down. Within Israel, there's 3 things that you can see. The first one is the yod. And the yod means what? He. Okay. The next part, okay, these 2 letters right here, the sar, which is the shin and the resh, that means to rule or ruler. Okay. And then also from an agricultural term, it means to turn. And what? The resh is the head. That's what a ruler does. A ruler knows how to turn the head. And then the last part of that is El. And El is what? Power. And it's a reference to the creator. That's why he's Elohim or Elohai, our Elohim. So when you look at the name Yisrael, again, you would break it down and say that if we interpreted it this direction, the first thing we would say is El is the power, Sar, that rules and turns the head of he, and that he is Yaakov, Jacob. You see? So when we read the Hebrew, we can break it down. We can interpret it in several different ways. Look at here, Sar. That's what it is. It's a ruler to turn the head. But listen here, Sar, and I threw that I on there. What's the name? Who's that?
Sarah.
That's our mother. And guess what she does? She was doing what? Boy, you better hear me. She was turning heads. Because of how fine she was. This 90-year-old woman got kidnapped. He's throwing his woman in a suitcase or a box to get so they wouldn't take her. You understand what I'm saying to you?
Mhm.
She turns heads. Okay. That's what it is. But also, too, if she's a Sar, again, is a prince. That's what a Sar is. That's what a ruler is. So if a Sar is a prince, then what is Sarah?
Princess.
She's a princess. You understand? She's a princess. So if she's a princess, then we're what? Royal. Oh, then that means our father was a ruler. Because she's a princess, he's a prince. Is it not with the people around Abraham said, you're a prince of Elohim? So if we're princes and princesses, that means that our father must be a what?
Okay, yeah.
Your daddy is a king. Do you hear what I'm saying to you? So if you and I are royal, based on this fact, you can see the royalty in our line. You can see the royalty in our name. You can see the kingship. And if you and I are royal, then you and I have to understand this. That should be your motivation. That should be your motivation, is to say that I'm royal. Okay. And because I'm royal, I need to act royal. I need to think royal. I need to eat royal. I need to sleep royal. I need to dress royal. You guys are getting a whole nother message. We're royal. And the royal language is this. This is what it is. So you princesses and princes, understand me, house of Israel, that you are a special people to Yahweh. Okay? And you and I will prevail when Yah has turned our head in the direction that he wants us to go. You see? So you guys are getting extra on your journey. A lot of the people don't want to eat any of this. And I love my group. I do. I want them to eat it. They don't want to eat it. You see? So Yah has provided you and I with this to say, okay,